Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. We are joined, as always, by our friend and trusted producer, Max Kerman. We are also joined by our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. And of course, Erica is working the dials. Later in the show, we are all looking forward to our conversation with play-by-play broadcaster of the WNBA's Washington Mystics and former Hamiltonian, Meghan Mcpeak. So, it's been a while since we've recorded a podcast. Since we last recorded, a lot has been going on in the world. The murder of George Floyd set off a wave of protests calling for not only justice in his case, but for justice in countless cases of police brutality and racial profiling. These protests have led to a national and international conversation about systemic racism, white privilege, acknowledging the existence of both and identifying a path to real change now and into the future. Obviously, I think because of the enormity of the moment and out of respect for these heavy and important issues, we decided it was best to sort of take a moment before immediately jumping back into recording. So here we are. We're all together. It makes me happy to see all your faces. How has everybody been?
Yeah, normally we'd... when things are going on in the news, we'd be texting each other and saying, oh, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. And we get excited to do a podcast. But with everything going on, none of us even texted each other. We just all kind of assumed, they're like, you know what, this is not the time to be weighing in. It's actually way more interesting just to be listening to the other leaders and the other ideas that are out there that probably haven't been heard enough in the past. But we actually had a really... enlightening time just sharing just the words of other people. And a lot of people have been doing that on Instagram, obviously just like sharing resources for how we can learn more, who you can donate to, how we can better educate ourselves. I particularly love Shad. Shad's like a dear old friend of the band, and he's always been a really kind of wise beyond his years kind of guy, and just like kind of approaches life with just this sort of grace and wisdom that I've always admired so much. And so that's the kind of thing that we've been sharing, and it just felt like, now is the time just to, at least when it comes to the Arkells perspective, to share the space in a bigger way. But when it came to this family tree stuff, like what was the angle?
Just pass the ball to Alex, and she knows what to say, man. But in all seriousness, Alex, although she is a white woman, she's also an educator. She's spoken on issues like this before, and this issue specifically. In fact, she created a project for her class based around the Black Lives Matter movement. So we were just basically speaking on our thoughts on it, how we have to look inwards and be more inclusive, and the guests we have on our podcast. Just kind of stream of consciousness, and I guess we kind of had the ideology, even if we don't say the perfect thing and we're failing and falling and stumbling, at least we're stumbling forwards in hopefully the right direction. But I understand there's a lot of different positions here. Like there's, okay, everyone, let's all talk. And then there's people who are like, let's shut up and actually listen. And for us, what seemed to work best and feel right was to listen and to talk about it.
Yeah, the one thing I really loved about how quickly things moved in the last 3 months is that I remember when Black Lives Matter came about in 2013, I think that's when the movement really started, just that phrase in particular. And for a lot of people, I think me and myself included, it felt like, I'm like, okay, I haven't really thought about it in this particular way. And then, okay, sure. But like I think a lot of people didn't take it as seriously or fully understand what that sentiment really was trying to articulate. But in a matter of like 3 weeks, so many people not fully understood it, but much more comprehensively had an understanding as to like why that expression is so important for people to really think about and really dig in on. And I thought that was really cool because, people, I think a lot of people are conservative by nature and don't love change and are stubborn and don't like being told what to do. Like those are just like a lot of just basic human characteristics. And I found it really encouraging to see this thing that should be acknowledged happen so quickly, and just like public sentiment really sort of favor that idea in a much larger way than 3 months ago, say.
Yeah, I think that people are far more receptive and sort of willing to acknowledge systemic racism and the idea of white privilege. Whereas, like you said, 5 years ago, if you were to bring up Black Lives Matter, a lot more people were dismissive, or they took it personally. Like they saw it as some sort of like encroaching on their freedom somehow. But now I feel like people do understand the message, and it's sad that it took, more like an incident like the murder of George Floyd and these sort of massive protests and show of unity, and how many people are willing to speak up and give spaces and places to sort of amplify voices that have been marginalized and are affected by the way things have been set up. And it also means that white people have to sort of take a step back and say, okay, you're right. It's like, listen to their experiences and then ultimately find a way that we can move forward with the system changed, because you know what I mean? Obviously it's geared towards certain outcomes at this point. And people are just far more aware of that. And I think another thing too, that like has kind of happened is some people mistake silence with like not caring or not supporting or something like that. And so some people aren't very demonstrative. Some people aren't going to post something every day on their Instagram or whatever. So there's not sort of activists in that way, and they can sort of help in their own way. And I'm interested to know like how you guys feel about sort of the display of support, if you support. And it's still, Facebook is such a toxic place. You go on there, you're going to see the whole spectrum. But I will say that like just anecdotally, my Facebook, it feels like, the high school set that people used to go to school with, who used to be a lot more sort of like vocal about, say like all lives matter and things like that, would push back. They're a lot more receptive to sort of acknowledging, sort of the systemic issues that have been sort of like plaguing us for countless years. But yeah, I'm interested because like for me, like Danica's been posting, she posts stories and stuff like amplifying or like educational. And I haven't posted like a ton of things on my Instagram just because I'm like, sometimes I'm like, it's like, am I being performative? It's very weird. So it's almost like I want to make it clear where I stand. So there's no sort of like confusion as to like, yes, I support this. I absolutely believe that all of these things are happening and that they need to be corrected. And then, I'll donate. But it feels so like kind of like minimal just to sort of like throw money at something. But it's like, I don't know how to sort of like publicly show my support where it doesn't become sort of this avalanche of like a performative support. Do you guys hear what I'm saying?
I think everyone feels that, but the key is to kind of fight through that and do it anyway. Alex was really passionate about it, and she was doing so much on her Instagram account. And then we thought any insecurity or worry or embarrassment you have about seeming like a virtue signaler, you just got to fight through it and do it anyway. That's just what we thought.
Yeah, I think it's about like really checking in with yourself and going like, okay, it's one thing to spread the word. It's another thing to act according to your morals and walk towards the direction of your moral compass, and actually put your money where your mouth is and walk the walk, I think is what I'm really trying to say. And so there's one part in spreading the message. And the next thing is, if you're in a conversation with somebody who says something out of line, are you speaking up? Or are you acknowledging just other privileges in your life in a real and meaningful way that sometimes should make you feel uncomfortable? Like, because if it's just the one, that's probably not the point. But if it's a combination of just like of that plus really checking in with yourself, I think that's like, what people are looking for when it comes to actually making tangible progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like fighting through the embarrassment and the awkwardness and doing it anyway.
Being authentic. And also, what we're talking about now, it's funny because like, it's like, these are just sort of like fighting through the embarrassment. These are just social constructs where we're like, oh, it feels performative. And it's like, but the truth is the issue is so much bigger than that. There's people that are scared to drive their fucking cars at night because they're black, because they're going to get pulled over and there's going to be issues. You know what I mean? So it's like the cause we're all talking about is so much more important than, I guess,
and
these sort
seeming
of like
disingenuous online.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you said, it is pushing through that and sort of like supporting in the ways that you can.
Yeah, I think another thing that I really liked and appreciated was just the kind of conversation just within like our group of friends,
yeah.
and just how it got everybody thinking about their own actions and the role they play, and a lot of times the role they play in this case is just like the luck that you were born into, like just by in many cases just being a white guy. Which is probably the most privilege somebody can have. But it just reminded me of the Me Too movement. Like you really thought about that in a much different way. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to Black Lives Matter. It's like you're thinking about the way race plays a part in our culture in a much different way. And the paradigm just changed very quickly all of a sudden. And I think it led to a lot of really good conversations and really like a lot of like inward looking thoughts as to like, you know, how you're a part of that.
Because like overt racism is so obvious, but it's the subconscious racism and the subconscious misogyny. So,
but I think after Me Too, we really began to dig into that. And
that's what, like, even on this family tree, we were thinking like, okay, we're not racist, but have we had one black guest in 50 episodes? No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was like that type of thing we really started to think about, which goes kind of beyond the more overt.
And I think overall, like what's happening, and this is sort of the evolution of the way that we think as a society and the way that we act, is ultimately we're thinking about things that we didn't want to think about before, or that were inconvenient to think about, because ultimately people just want to like watch a baseball game and have a hot dog and not think too much, you know? And it's like now we're forced to confront these things that are real. And then we have to, once you know, and you can't, then if you actually act a certain way, then you're kind of a shitty person. You have to confront that. And so the more people that can become aware of these constructs that are, you know, oppressive or gear the system to certain people, the more that they can sort of change those behaviors, because now you're sort of aware. You can no longer be ignorant. And that seems to be what to Max's point, what Me Too did for, you know, some stuff as simple as like inter-office politics, you know, between men and women. Mm-hmm. It's all changed. And now I think that, you know, on a larger scale than we have been, we're all going to start thinking. And the thing is, like, you know, you're saying, Max, conversations that we have, like, I think progressive people are having versions of this conversation, or have been having versions of this conversation. What the protests feel like it's doing is it's making it like an international conversation that people can't avoid. So now it's like at every dinner table in America, and it feels like that's the sort of push that it needed to be in the forefront. And that's what feels like is happening in this moment anyway. Okay, guys, it is time to get to our featured guest. Like I said off the top, we have Meghan Mcpeak, who felt like a natural fit, particularly for this moment in time as sports are on the precipice of coming back. The WNBA, where Meghan is a broadcaster, is one of the leagues gearing up to return. Also, as a Black Canadian living and working in Washington, D.C., she can share her perspective on the protests and how they intersect with sports. You guys want to get to Meghan?
Let's do it.
All right, so for our listeners, Meghan is the play-by-play broadcaster for the Washington Mystics, as well as the Capital City Go-Go, who are the Wizards G League team. She was the former voice of the Raptors 905, which I watched a lot of, so it's nice to have her on. And this is actually a good tidbit I got on her. She also became the first female play-by-play broadcaster in 30 years to call an NBA game when she called a Wizards-Pistons preseason game. So without further ado, Meghan Mcpeak, thanks for coming on the Michael Much podcast.
I am, I like to say, correction on my intro, 2019 WNBA champion, Washington Mystics.
Touche.
And by the way, the full scope of the introduction should be that she's not just some hoophead that we love. She's also the sister of one of our dear friends, Matt Mcpeak, and you guys grew up together. So that, I mean, there's a bit of an inside scoop here. We didn't just grab her out of nowhere.
It's very true. If regular listeners of the pod have heard us talk about Peak, our dear friend, you are his sister. I didn't want to seem like a nepotism play, you know. And it's like she's got her own credentials.
No, the nepotism is okay because he has finally accepted the fact that I am officially the cooler sibling of the Mcpeak siblings now. So this for me is actually kind of cool because, I mean, Veerman, you know, growing up, like, he picked on me as the older brother and me being the younger sibling. So I officially get my sweet, sweet revenge now being on the pod and being the cooler sibling. So, and I'm the favorite child, so...
I don't think Peak's been on the pod.
Never.
I don't think he has. No. There you go. You're beating him to the spot. It's good.
So you're down in Washington right now. This is where you're calling in from.
Yeah. The epicenter.
The epicenter, indeed. I mean, I feel like there's so much to talk about, but the place we're going to start, which we do with all our guests, is sort of like how you got to your job, because play-by-play announcing feels like such a niche job, and there's only, you know, a handful of them in North America. Like, how does your path go? Did you always want to be play-by-play? Like, you're like, that's what I want to do? Or was it like, I want to be in the league? What was your path and what was your thought process?
So when I was at Humber, taking their radio program, I was doing it in the sense of, like most athletes, like, okay, what am I going to do after I'm done playing? I wanted to play professionally, whether it was overseas, whatever it may be. And just with a series of injuries and then a really bad concussion to finish my college career, I accepted the fact that pro was not going to be my thing. Just especially with overseas at the time, they weren't, if you had any type of brain injury, they weren't really taking, import players too seriously, especially with really bad concussions. And that's unfortunately what I had. So my post-playing career turned into right after college. And when I was at McMaster for the 4 years there, you guys know, growing up in Hamilton with McMaster football and basketball, Dr. Don was the voice of CFMU. So he was actually the play-by-play person for the radio station, and he fell ill, subsequently passed away. And because of that, it kind of shifted me from doing the analyst position into doing play-by-play, because when he got sick, they needed someone to fill in. And Jamie Tanan at the time, who brought me on at Mac, asked if I would be comfortable doing that. And here I am. It's crazy to think that was 10 years ago. 10 years later, it's my career. And those first 3 games that I did, I remember, my mom, you guys know Liz, she would drive me to every single McMaster game, road game or not, outside of going to Ottawa or Windsor. And after my 3rd game doing play-by-play, I was like, I want to do this for a career. I don't want to be an analyst. And the rest is basically history, which is crazy to think that, I originally wanted to be an analyst because of Doris Burke. I wanted to be the Canadian Doris Burke, as most female broadcasters in sports want. They want that level of not just recognition, but that level of respect from the coaches and athletes. And I'm still striving to get to there, but from a play-by-play aspect.
How did you transition to the Raptors in 2005? Because that's a pretty big jump. Are you naturally sort of someone who networks and is able to sort of see all of the opportunities? Because in some ways, as an athlete, it's even a career can be a game where you can see sort of opportunities or deficiencies or ways to sort of be that's something I can take advantage of. I can get in here. Were you thinking of that as you plotted your career, or were you sort of just going with the flow?
I was kind of going with the flow. I'll be honest, and this is something that I struggled with and still do. And whenever I talk to college students or high school students, I always preface it with saying, I myself struggle with this. Even now, at this point in my career, I hate networking, but it is so important in this business. To be honest, it's important in sports, period. No matter what area in sports you're in, you have to network, because your talent and your knowledge can only take you so far. You need to make those relationships, because when it comes down to, you think about 30 opportunities in the NBA, when something comes up, whether it's a coach, general manager, video coordinator, it does not matter. It's one of 30. You need people in your corner to vouch for you. And that's where networking comes into play. So for me, it was not only networking and getting comfortable with that, because as you guys know, networking can sometimes feel so inauthentic. And forced. And that's something that I have tried to learn to do and make the connections while also having an authentic conversation with that person. Because let's be real, you go into a conversation with someone, they know and you know your purpose is to network with them, but you also want to build a genuine relationship. And that's something that I started changing, was instead of just networking, build a relationship. And because of doing that early on and realizing that it was easier and more authentic that way, it allowed me to take my 4 years at Mac, turn that into networking with people and building relationships, which led me to doing the Brampton A's in the National Basketball League of Canada, which then allowed me to network and build relationships even more, which turned into 3 years with the 905 and in that Toronto Raptors umbrella, which allowed me to then build relationships and network myself to the United States. You guys know from my brother, I've always wanted to be in the United States. And being an import now, you have to network properly so that someone is willing to bring you across the border. And I had to build those authentic relationships, which allowed me to get to that point. And because of that, our general manager here with the Capital City Go-Go, Pops Mensah-Bonsu, I built a relationship with him, and he vouched for me when this opportunity came about. And because of that, I'm now basically living out my dreams and trying to get to the NBA level consistently.
Meg, I think another thing you point at is if you're able to network with some authenticity, it doesn't feel like networking, right? And I listen to Zach Lowe's podcast, and he says like one of his favorite things to do during the NBA Finals is go for dinner with some coaching staff or one of the front office people that he's covering. And it sounds like he just genuinely likes the conversation because he loves basketball. He's talking to somebody who loves basketball. There's lots of gossip, I'm sure. There's lots of strategy to talk about. So if you like your job, it's probably a little bit easier to have those more honest conversations because it just feels like you're talking about something you have in common with someone. It's not like, oh, hey, do you think I could, you're shimming up to them in in sort of a lame way.
Exactly. Especially to Max, to your point, like in Zach Lowe's position, it's a little different than mine. Like he and the other writers that cover sports, whether it's football, basketball, hockey, whatever it may be, the beat writers that are consistently covering the sport on a daily basis, they need those relationships to get the inside. Like Woj doesn't have Woj bombs and Shams doesn't, they are not two of the best in the game if they don't have those authentic relationships with players, agents, front offices, coaches. They don't find out that information if they don't have those authentic conversations. And I think and sometimes, to be honest with you, it's not even basketball that you talk about. You might find out that, you have a hobby that you have in common with someone, or, a favorite food or a wine, or, you both enjoy golf in your off time. Like it can be something unrelated to basketball that turns into one conversation, which ends up into another, and so on and so on. And before you know it, you build these relationships with people. And I've been able to do that, throughout my career at different levels. And I don't want to say it's come in handy, but it's benefited me, and I've been able to benefit from it authentically because people get to know you and know who you are. Because if you're a horrible person or, an angry person, if a job comes open in any industry, someone's not going to want to vouch for you because you're not going to necessarily want, that person.
You're a bad hang.
Right.
You're just a bad hang.
Exactly.
No one wants to hang out
wants
with a bad hang. Yeah.
Making the move to the States, was it hard to get a visa? Like the mechanics of that always seem so intimidating to me. I'm sure everybody harbors, we've all thought about I wonder what would happen if a job opportunity came up in the States. Would I go down there? And it just seems like there's so many roadblocks. Was it easy for you to get down there once you sort of had the position?
At Monumental, they worked with a lawyer who's familiar with doing the visa process, familiar with immigration. And it was really easy to work with them. And, emailing back and forth, they just needed as much information from me as possible. And then the lawyer basically took control of the situation and handled it, and did it for me. So, it comes in handy when you have someone, like a company that's willing to help you with the process or assist you in the process. If you're doing it on your own, it is definitely a daunting process. Even just doing the research when I was interviewing for the position, was very daunting. So I was very, very thankful and grateful that they brought in a lawyer that assisted with it, because she basically just asked me for, name, date of birth, all that information, and then handled it until, she had a couple more questions that they needed information on. And then I didn't hear from her until she let me know that the visa was approved and I was good to go.
The night that the Mystics won the championship, which was awesome. It was all over Instagram. I was actually watching the game and then I was messaging you a bit. Do you, as somebody who's working, allow yourself to actually party hard? Or are you no, I'm just going to sort of celebrate in a very sort of safe way?
So it was very interesting for me covering the finals because the team I work for was in the finals. So I had a rooting interest, but I had to take that portion of, my job and put it aside and remember that I was there to cover two teams. I was there to cover Connecticut and I was there to cover Washington. So I realized that I had it in me to do it because, you look at that opportunity and you jump at it. But then at the same time, you're like, well, damn, like my own team is in this. I want them to win because it would be an amazing season, but you have to be impartial. So I, had a conversation with myself before the first day of practices and kind of just remembered and reiterated to myself, like, you've got to focus equally on both teams. And then, game 5 happens, and that fourth quarter, I kind of just like turned it off. I was like, it's like, no, like this is insane. So I was floor level preparing for post-game interviews and I went down probably 3 minutes into the fourth quarter, and it was the longest fourth quarter I have ever experienced. And you guys know, like, I've been part of big teams and big games. And when you're in it, it's one thing, but standing and watching these women fighting for what they wanted, it was insane, especially knowing where they were last season. So, and because like the process of me doing the interviews and getting this job was during last year's WNBA finals, I had a rooting interest last year in 2018 when they played Seattle. So I also had that rooting interest, like, nah, like it's championship or bust this season. So when that final buzzer went, and then like I looked up and the confetti went off, like it was a moment that I will forever be thankful for. Similar to when I got to do sideline for the NBA G League finals in year 2 when the 905 won. Same situation, like being in the locker room with the champagne, watching Pascal Siakam, MVP to NBA champion, like that's been an insane journey to ride too. And Fred VanVleet as well. But I did my job. I did the interviews. It was really cool to interview Elena, afterwards. I actually found out ahead of game 5, the day before. I ran into, Mrs. Tebow, Coach Tebow's wife, in Starbucks. And she gave me a little inside information and let me know that they were going to celebrate, I believe, 30 plus years of marriage. And the year that he won an NBA title on staff with the Lakers was going to happen the same thing for their son, Eric. So it was essentially coming full circle for them. And He was now doing it with his dad as his, head coach and boss. So it was kind of crazy to see that, but also too, literally 9 days later, Eric was getting married. So Mike and Nancy got married the year that he won a title with the Lakers. And then Eric and his wife were then getting married 10 days after they won with the Mystics, which was insane. I'm so glad they won, because that wedding might have been really, really like down and out.
Saddest wedding ever.
Right. So they took the trophy to the wedding, which was pretty cool. Everybody got a picture with it. But I did my job, interviewed everybody, had a good time, took some pictures. And then the party afterwards wasn't just a party for the players. It was a party for the entire organization. It was a party for Coach Tebow. He's the winningest coach in WNBA history. This was his, if I'm not mistaken, 4th time getting to the finals. And you guys know, when you're a head coach in professional sports, if you get to the finals once, it's amazing. If you lose, it sucks. If you get there again, that's amazing. And the pressure just keeps adding on every time you get there. So he was fighting the legacy story. Winningest coach in history of the league, but never had a title. Couldn't get it done in the finals. So to see him get his title was probably the greatest moment to see. Seeing Elena getting back to the finals and winning was pretty awesome. But just getting to see an organization as a whole celebrate as a family was really, really cool. I was there with my coworkers and my friends. It was a coworker's birthday at the strike of midnight, so that was pretty cool. It was my birthday a few days later. So I'm not gonna lie, I partied hard. I partied really hard. I'll put it this way, Max,
I was waiting for that answer for so long.
Guys, my brother would be so proud of the way I partied. He would have been so proud of how hard I partied that night. full disclosure, I was so tipsy that, eventually at the end of the night, I fell down a parking ramp. I scraped up my arm. Like I celebrated.
Jeez.
I celebrated.
So obviously your season's done, so you don't have to worry about work the next day. But are you at the point where you're so good you could be hungover and do a play-by-play?
I was hungover, and we had downside. A downside to the season timing for WNBA and when they have to go overseas, we haven't had a parade. They didn't get a parade the way you would see it because the finals MVP, Emma Miesemann, and a few other players had to leave within 24 hours of winning and go overseas to play. So we did a celebration party for the team, and what we call our founding fans. 99% of them have been fans since literally day one of the organization. They're all season ticket holders. The organization put this together in probably 6 hours. So I got a call at 9 a.m. I got in at about 5. So, I was tired. Hey, they want you to MC the celebratory party. Can you do that? I was like, what time do I have to be there? They were like, 11:45. I was like, cool, I'm going back to sleep. Call me in an hour to wake me up and I'm going to shower. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. I got it done. And to your question, Shane, I think, and I just knowing myself, I would probably be able to do a game hungover. I would felt like complete crap, but I would have got it done.
No, good for you.
You're a true professional.
Well, that's the sign of a true professional. Yeah, exactly.
By any means necessary.
You said off the top, you're in Washington, which is sort of the epicenter of protest and all sorts of things that are going on in America and around the world. You also occupy a very unique sort of position because you're a Black Canadian living and working in America. So you have this sort of like a unique view of everything that's going on. What's the vibe like, I guess, first of all, in Washington right now? Interesting.
That's probably the easiest way I can put it. It's very interesting. Just because, as I said, I'm at the epicenter of American politics. Where I'm located, where I live is literally like 20 minutes and I walk to the White House. Like I'm not far. I am in an area that is, heavily populated by buildings, apartments. Very young, like average person living here is anywhere between, 25 and 35. And at any given moment, like actually a couple hours ago, a protest went down our street and no roadblocks, nothing. They messed up everybody's, drive of the people that still are driving back and forth from work. They messed up that completely. Like they didn't care. People don't care. And they're sick of what's going on. They're sick of, the police brutality. They're sick of centuries of systemic racism towards Black Americans, Black people, Black immigrants. They don't care anymore. And it's crazy to think that there's been how many videos consistently to think of how many of there that weren't caught on video or videos were deleted because, authorities might have got their hands on that person's phone and deleted it for whatever reason. But the moment that George Floyd took his last breath was the moment that Black people in America and around the world basically said, F this, like we're done. So it has been, it's gotten better probably in the last, I would say week and a half, but the tensions are still high. A couple nights ago, there was a standoff between protesters and Metro PD, and people were probably injured and things like that. So at any given moment on any given day, tensions can bubble over and things can happen. And people are trying to take down the Confederate statues, and unfortunately, the person who occupies the White House is trying to put them back up. And I don't know why. I mean, for what reason? For what reason? That's exactly what is wrong with not just America. That's exactly what is wrong with the entire world. At what point do all lives actually matter? And the crazy thing about that crowd of All Lives Matter is until Black Lives Matter, even in Canada with the Indigenous people, until their lives matter, until every single race and creed in this world matters, all lives will not matter, plain and simple. Like, humanity is not going to matter to each other if we don't stop and listen. So easiest way to put it is, it is interesting, and every day is very different.
Hey, Meg, I feel like when we were growing up as sports fans, you'd hear stories about, female reporters in the locker room and just being mistreated or sexually harassed. And as we've moved on in time, there's been more and more women who are on the sports beat and getting, anchor jobs and, play-by-play announcers like yourself. And we think of the NBA as maybe the most enlightened, progressive community when it comes to professional sports. It's probably the most diverse. The commissioner, speaking specifically about the NBA, like Adam Silver, they espouse the values of equality and justice, and they have a very active players union that fights for a lot of good causes. But the thing that's been really interesting for us, and we talked about this off the top, is just really thinking about the lived experiences of people that aren't in positions of power necessarily. And I was just kind of curious for you, even though you exist in this ecosystem that seems to be almost as enlightened as it gets, what are parts, when it comes to professional sports, what are parts of your experience that you go, actually, that was actually really shitty, or this player or this coach didn't treat me with the same respect as a male colleague? Like, what's the, how do we do better when it comes to thinking about this and making tangible change? I
think, Max, it's, when you think about the gender inequality, it's the same as the race inequality. I've lately, probably since I moved here, whenever I speak to, whether it's a class or a clinic, whatever it may be, I always try to remind them that when humans were created, we were created with one mouth and two ears for a reason. I think now in 2020, and crazy to think that we're saying this, but it should have happened years ago, we need to stop talking and start listening. You can listen better with two ears than you can talk with one mouth. Funny enough, I say that as I answer a question. But, when it comes to making a change, I think a lot of it is listening. And, the more you see owners of different sports teams consistently say that, Mark Cuban has said it a lot. Our own owner, Ted Leonsis, has said it a lot. We need to start having these conversations, but part of having a conversation is you need to listen to what people are saying, because change doesn't happen if you don't listen. And I think that's where a lot of issues come into play when it comes to, politicians. They love to hear themselves talk. And at what point do you stop liking to hear yourself talk and you start listening to your fellow politicians, your fellow senators, your fellow mayors? The only way change can happen in any city, any state, any county, anywhere, is to stop talking and start listening when people ask you a question about what can I do to help you make a change. And I think, as women and Black people, we need allies. Coming here to the US and just in general, I'm a double minority. I am a interracial woman. But when you look at the color of my skin, they could care less about the fact I'm interracial. They automatically will just see she's Black. So I'm still a double minority. I am a Black woman. You can even add in the third one of being in America. I am a Black woman on a visa. So I have to, look at that and look at who are my allies. As people of color, as women, we need allies. Black people need white allies. Women need male allies. Men need women allies. And, white people need Black allies. You can't make change without having each other's back. And I think that is a huge thing. So allyship and listening to what people are saying to you.
Yeah. I was curious what the sort of temperature is, or just the sort of the dialogue happening within your organization. Masai had a really interesting statement earlier today he was talking about how, they've worked hard to have more women in positions of leadership at MLSE, but he said there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's not enough, people of color, and they still have a lot of thinking to do and acting. Have you been involved in conversations? Have you around the organization? Because I know a lot of all of corporate culture to a degree are doing roundtables, and good leadership is really trying to listen. Have you been able to present any tangible ideas, or have you heard about things that are going to be changing in your organization?
Yeah, and Max, even to your point with Masai, when he was on Woj's pod, he said himself, yes, we want change, but I have to look at my own backyard. And I think every owner of every sports team, every general manager, every president of every sports team, they need to look in their own backyard. And I know here we're having conversations. We're doing, we're setting up town halls. We're having conversations where, executive leadership and our ownership group is asking the Black employees, for their opinions. What can we change? What concerns do you have? What would you like to see be done differently? So the conversations are being had. And I think that's a step. You can't make a change without a conversation. So I give credit and respect to the fact that they're willing and open to even ask, because these conversations are uncomfortable, and they can be very uncomfortable for people who are not Black, because they're not experiencing what Black people go through on a daily basis. They don't have to, think about, okay, I just got pulled over, lights in the back. Where are my hands? Where's my wallet? Where's my registration? Where's my insurance? I have to tell that cop, if it's in my glove compartment, I'm going to reach for my insurance with my right hand so that they don't take that as me making a sudden movement. White people don't have to experience that. So the fact that, team ownerships and front offices are willing to have those uncomfortable conversations, that's a step in the right direction. But from those conversations, then what are you doing? So that's what I'm waiting to see from personally, and not just my own organization, but from corporate America, from the NBA, from the WNBA. What are you doing? Because we can have these conversations, great, but what are you going to do with that information now that we've had that conversation?
I wanted to shift a bit to, only got a couple more for you, Meghan. Don't want to take up your whole night. The idea that sports is on the precipice of coming back, and there is a pandemic going on. It feels like a lot of stuff is all happening at once all the time these days. Some good, like social change and civil unrest, and then some bad and terrifying, like a global pandemic. One, do you think sports is going to get there? Do you think we are going to come back? Because everyone's like, sports is back. It's like, well, in North America, nothing's been played yet. And the WNBA is one of those sports that is supposed to start up in July, in Florida as well. One, do you think we're going to get there? And two, do you think we should, during a pandemic, get sports rolling again?
It's tough. I mean, do I think we're going to get there? If something doesn't change in Florida, and that's where the leagues want to restart, I don't think so. And Adam Silver said today, there is no option that is risk-free, with the exception of not playing. That's the only risk-free option right now. And
it's like abstinence.
Exactly. They're like, what are you going to do? You want a risk-free option? Your risk-free option is don't play. And that's really all he's got. So he and, Commissioner Engelbert are trying to figure out the best course of action. And I'll be honest, I am glad it's not my job because it is a daunting task. I commend them for what they're trying to do. The fact that on a daily basis, Florida continues to set records is concerning to me. So if I'm a sports league, do I want to put, with the NBA, do I want to put 300 plus players alone? That's not even including the staff. Do I want to put 300 plus players and staff in a risk? And I understand that with their bubble idea that they're doing, they're trying to limit the risk within that area. I get it. I get there's always going to be a risk, but at what point are lives more important than the bottom line? I understand, both leagues are going to lose a lot of money. They already have. I understand teams and owners are losing a lot of money. And, I hope I still have a job after this pod comes out. But at the same time, at what point are lives more important than money? Like, it's really that simple. Will I be happy if sports comes back? Yes, of course. It'll be a great distraction from sitting at home all day doing nothing. It'll be a great distraction from watching the same episodes of Law and Order SVU over and over. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Mariska Hargitay and Odafin Tutuola. I love them both. But like, at what point, like, I can probably regurgitate the scripts off by heart at this point. Same with Criminal Minds. Like, will it be a great distraction? Of course. I'm not denying that. Is it the right idea? I don't think so. But that's just like, that's just my personal opinion. I am not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But at the end of the day, I'm going to listen to what the medical experts say. And if the medical experts are saying that doing the bubble is the safest way for sports to return, then if I'm a player, I have to understand that. But at the same time, the fact that both leagues are giving the players the option to play or not play, they're giving them that option. And if I was a player, I honestly can say I don't know if I'd be playing. I might be sitting out. Again, that's just me. But my thing is, would I be sitting out because of COVID, or would I be sitting out because of social justice?
And I mean, that's like one of the major sort of decisions that has to be made. I mean, this is why Avery Bradley and Kyrie Irving have sort of been pushing to not go back in, is to keep the focus on social justice and maybe not have the distraction of sports. I also had a question. So this is an important question. Shane used to play basketball with your brother Peak on the high school team. I'm wondering if you used to attend Westmount represent. Did you attend any of those games as an observer? And can you break down Shane's game for us, maybe?
As a professional.
So I did attend the games. I attended basically all of them, as long as I didn't have my own practices for travel basketball. Can I break down Shane's game? I mean, he was better than my brother.
Oh wow, that's a controversial statement.
My brother's
totally loses credibility
gonna
right
definitely
there.
beat me up for that. But I mean, I'm on your guys' pod, so I gotta be politically correct, right? No, I will be completely honest with you guys. I don't even remember.
It's for the best.
To be honest, I remember.
Says a lot about my game right there.
I don't even remember my brother's game, if that makes you feel better, Shane. But like, I legit only remember just going and being like, "Okay, Mom, like, can I go shoot at halftime?" Like, I was that little sibling. Like, I wanted every time out, beelined it out there. Every quarter break, I was beelining it out to the court to get in as many shots as possible. Halftime, I was out there. Like, that's all I really cared about.
I will say this: Peak and I were the best players on that team.
No doubt,
we were.
Was that without Mark Lane on the team?
Oh, yeah, Mark Lane. Oh yeah, he was my rival. Yeah.
Meghan, thank you so much for joining us. The last time I saw you in person was actually at your brother's wedding, and I hope that it's not too much longer until that we all see you in person again. And maybe you come back for some holidays, and the pandemic has moved on, and we can all have a drink.
Yeah, I mean, I would come back if the Prime Minister would let me into the country.
Do we need to start a campaign?
It's time to come home.
Well, no, full disclosure, my dad told me a while, I think it was Mother's Day, he let me know, like, I can't return to the country because I would be staying with my parents, Jim and Liz. And yes, to your listeners, I call them Jim and Liz. Backstory, when you're little and you're in a largely populated area, if you yell mom, all the moms are going to turn around. So I picked up on that. So I would just yell Liz or Jim. Chances of everybody being named Jim and Liz are going to be very minimal. So they know when I call them mom and dad that I usually wanted something. But no, because they're in the vulnerability group. I'm not going to give their ages away because my mom would kill me. But I can't stay with them because just from traveling, I have to quarantine for, 7 to 14 days. And Trudeau said, if the only place you can stay, because my brother won't let me stay with him,
Wow.
is with people in the vulnerability group, you can't come back to the country. So, but yeah, it's crazy. The last time I saw any of you guys was probably the wedding, which was going on 3 years ago?
I saw you at the Carter Effect premiere.
That was going on 3 years ago too.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because that was the Carter Effect and Giants of Africa were during my time with the 905. I think Carter Effect was going into season 3 with the 905, and then the Giants of Africa was the following, around same time, but the year after. So it's been a while.
Wow,
It's been too long.
Too long.
Well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate your time, and stay safe down there.
Guys, I appreciate you for having me, and sorry, Matt, I'm the cooler one now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Meg.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks again to Meghan Mcpeak for coming on here and spending some time with us and catching up. That was great. Like I said off the top, gang, we really haven't talked much in a few weeks. So I guess just in general, before we get to maybe a topic, what's everyone been up to? And I'm going to start with our pop culture aficionado, Shane. Shane, how you been?
Yeah, man.
I feel like you've been busy. A lot of family tree action happening.
There's been a lot happening, and I changed my Instagram handle, which caused a bit of a problem for a lot of people. I didn't know it would, but it did.
Controversial. You changed, man, literally and figuratively. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I was surprised when I saw it, but I didn't think it, what was the blowback you got?
It was
Let people know what you changed it from, and maybe they can go follow you if they don't already on Instagram.
Yeah, so it used to be Shaney Boy 69, and now it's Shane Daddy 83.
Yeah.
But I think all things considered, it's a pretty good transitional name. Because Shaney Boy 69, obviously, I learned just recently, 69 apparently has a sexual connotation. So I was like, oh no. So then but Daddy can have a sexual connotation too. And 83 is just the year I was born, just revealing my age. But yeah, a lot of people were messaging me saying, yeah, you've changed. Your brother Greg messaged me and said, sell out. But honestly, I got like 60 messages. And it's interesting, though, because your brother Greg, he's not wrong in calling me a sellout, because I did it because I felt like I was being approached by some sponsors and approaching some sponsors for the podcast, but my name can be so off-putting. I didn't want to be like, if life is percentage points, I didn't want that extra 5 to 20% chance of me ruining an opportunity or anything to hurt my family because of some stupid, potentially unfunny Instagram handle. Because guys, as hard as this is for me to admit, I've matured and grown. But sure enough, the second I changed it, got like 6 sponsorships.
Whew.
And
Come on.
I'm now sponsored by Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell by Hello Bello, and might get Daxy Boy on the pod. But yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm not saying it's happening. But
What is Hello Bello, by the way?
It's a company, or
Hello Bello is a diaper company, so they also do baby products. So if anybody wants 30% off diapers, let me know.
classic Shane Daddy 83 right there. Selling those diapers.
Is that the promo code? Just enter Shane Daddy 83.
The promo code is This Family Tree 30, and on Hello Bello. But yeah, and then I got Perez Hilton on the pod also.
Ooh.
How did that go? How did you manage to finagle that? Because I feel like for a long time, Perez Hilton was like the guy. I feel like I don't think about him very often.
Yeah, he talks about that, and that's the one of the main reasons why he talks. He actually cries in the episode. He talks about how he used to be the it girl, and then he kind of fell off. But he also talks about how he's the OG blogger. He's never going to leave. He's always going to be here, and how most people just peak after 3 years and fall off forever. But he's still clinging on, and he wants to kind of change his image. He's a single gay dad of 3, so he gets a lot into that and kind of how he used to be a bully, and he runs a gossip blog and tries to stray away from that. It was pretty interesting, and we thought we could only keep him on the line for maybe 25 to 40 minutes, but we ended up keeping him for over an hour. And every time we try to wrap up, we'd be like, all right, Perez, thank you so much. We don't want to take too much of your time. He'd be like, oh, no. And then he'd go on another tangent for 20 minutes. We would try again. He'd go on 5 more minutes. And then it got to the point where almost like we have to go. It was such an interesting switcheroo. But, yeah, we're still like super thankful and glad that we had him. It was very interesting, but also very surreal to be chatting to someone like that, so iconic for so long.
Your phone rings right now, and it's like, hey, Shane, it's Perez. Just wondering what you're up to. Just sitting here, not doing much.
No, it honestly felt like a bit of a role reversal during the interview.
Has he been in touch since? Have you been keeping in touch? Have you been texting?
He talks to Alex, like he DMs her and whatnot. But I'm not. Like I just emailed his manager and sent him the link, and I think his manager might be his mom. I'm not 100% on that, but yeah.
And how did you get him though on the show? Like DM him?
So we had someone called the Bird's Papaya on our podcast, and that's a big get in the maternity world. And that kind of, once we got her, it made it a lot easier to get other guests. You kind of just keep trading up to higher and higher and higher. And then like we got Jillian Harris on the pod next, and she's like the biggest person in all of the mom blogosphere. So that's actually the biggest name, but guys like you and I won't know who that is really, except for like unless you're a pregnant woman. But she was actually one of the original bachelors or bachelorettes, and she was the first ever Canadian bachelorette.
Oh wow, interesting.
In America, yeah.
Erica, we haven't heard much from you since this podcast began, but you are here. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Ditto.
What have you been up to? What's been going on in Erica's world?
Not much. Chilling, COVID.
If listeners could see you on this call right now, you just like you stretched out and leaned back, kick your feet up.
Yeah, work's been like kind of crazy. We've been chugging along, producing stuff. And Mike, I know you produced a commercial too. It looked like you were on set that day, right?
I directed it, cut it. Yeah, it was something. But anyway, you've been out working? Yeah. You've been doing that?
Well, I haven't been on site for anything. We've just been like producing from home, which has been pretty wild. I'm producing a shoot inside the bubble in Fort Myers on Monday.
Wow.
So it's all been very crazy.
What does that mean, inside the bubble? What is that?
Like the Raptors bubble inside the hotel.
Oh.
But
are you scared?
I'm really scared. I'm directing it. It's my first like directing thing.
So you're not even scared because of COVID. You're just scared that you have a big gig.
She's not going to Florida. She's remotely
No, I'm not
doing
going to Florida. I'm doing it from my computer screen. Like it's like a virtual thing, shoot. But yeah.
That being said, my brother is going to Florida. I don't know if you guys knew that. I know you knew that, Max.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to cut that because I don't know if it's official yet.
Yeah, it's official.
It is official.
I was just.
Did he get his COVID
he's getting
test?
tested on Monday and Tuesday, and he's going. I actually saw him yesterday. I had to pick up some hard drives from him.
Would you go to Florida if you were asked, Erica?
Well, here's the thing. My passport expired in April, so. And then COVID happened, so I couldn't get pictures, and I haven't been to a passport office. So even if they asked me, I couldn't actually have gone, which kind of sucks.
Okay,
but I would have liked
World,
to.
Though, you would have gone?
Dream World, oh yeah. Would have packed a bunch of masks, and I would have head down there.
I don't want to spill too much, but speaking of the Raptors bubble, I was just texting with our friend Nick Nurse, and he said he put on a little bit of a concert with the piano in the lobby at the hotel yesterday. He did like full 8 songs, and I think Open Gym was filming it. So there's a little scoop for you, Erica.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Any R. Kelly songs in his repertoire?
I don't know. It wasn't on the set list that he sent me, but he has been working and knocking at the door. He did. He had like an Ed Sheeran song and some Prince. He's been sending me voice notes and stuff. It's been great.
Has your friendship with Nick suffered or flourished over COVID?
I think it's flourished, to be honest. I went over to his place, into his backyard a couple times, and we threw the football around, and we just like talk shop. It was really fun.
I love that story. Ash, is he allowed to share that story?
Yeah. What story? Which one?
Hanging out with Nick Nurse.
Oh yeah, it was good. Yeah, we just popped over to his place, and I brought a football over, and he was like, he's like, I played quarterback in high school. I got a hose. Let's throw the ball around. Yeah. And
I got a hose. I don't know that.
Like a good arm.
No.
Oh,
a good
okay.
arm.
That's okay. Cooler. Nice.
Yeah, and
do you wear gloves when you throw the football, or?
No, I don't think so. Is that part of the rules?
I don't know.
Football pretty good. Yeah.
Does your dad get jealous of your relationship with Nick Nurse at all?
No. My dad's just very like happy for me. Like anytime like something fun like this happens, he's just like, oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also popped by Kyle Dubas's backyard for his son's birthday a few weeks ago too. It was nice to catch up with him. So,
who has a nicer house?
Oh, great question.
They're in the same neighborhood though. Same neighborhood. I'll say that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, a thing. But it's fun. It's fun to ask Nick questions about the NBA, and he always has like a good insider kind of perspective on it. Obviously, because he's the coach. But a thing I did the other day, guys, is I got a COVID test, a COVID-19 test,
and
I still haven't heard back yet. It's been 4 days, so I'm assuming it's fine because I wasn't exhibiting any symptoms. Basically, I just wanted to do it because if I want to visit my grandmother, you have to prove that you have a negative test in like the last week. And I also kind of want to give my mom a hug. I've been hanging out with my parents' backyard when I go into Toronto. But my mom, like every time I leave, she like looks at me really sad and just like, and my mom's not the most like touchy person either, but she just kind of like reaches out for me as I'm leaving and then looks like she's almost going to cry. There is like a human touch thing happening. So yeah. I'd like to be able to give my mom a hug. So that was the main reason I wanted to do it. But it was cool because I went to one of the drive-in testing centers. Have you guys heard about this?
I've heard they exist, yeah.
In Hamilton or Toronto? Where'd you go?
In Hamilton. It's right near your place, Shane. It's right on the mountains. It's Dave Andrew Chuck Arena. It's $99.99.
$99?
Yeah.
Whoa.
No, it's healthcare. It's free.
Come on. Does it hurt? I heard they like have to stick it down your throat and it kind of hurts a little bit.
Well, it's definitely not down your throat. You have a lot of misinformation.
It's way up your nose.
Explain it. How does it work? Yeah.
Okay, wait a second. Speaking of misinformation, I was doing, because guys are starting to do backyard hangs now, and so I was in a backyard hanging out with a couple of the Champagne boys, and someone comes up to me and they go, "What the hell did you tell Shane?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said they ran into you somewhere and you were paying cash, and they go, "Why are you paying cash?" And they said, Shane said... He said, Mike Veerman told me all the banking system's going to collapse, so I have cash on me.
No, Mike, you told me that your brother-in-law told you to take out money. I go, really? Should I take out money? You go, I would. So I took out cash, and then, but I didn't have money in my bank account, so I had to use just cash for everything. So what I do is I when a delivery person comes over, I put cash in a Ziploc bag, and I'll put like a rock on top of it, and I'll just say, get the bag and like keep the change. But you did tell me that, Mike.
Yeah. No, but they just said, Shane said that Mike said the banks were going to collapse. And I just said there was a conversation early on where I said it might be smart to take out some money in case there's some like disruption in service. It's good to have cash on hand.
Well, isn't disruption in the service banks collapsing, Mike?
You made it seem like I was telling everybody like we were going to collapse.
Oh, I think the way you just said it's no different than I told Savelli, and people always want to make me seem like I'm crazy, right?
Right.
Well, like I told people not to hang out like the day COVID was announced, and they acted like I was some big tattletale or a narc or something. It's like Shane's insane because he didn't think we should all be making out at a party with our shirts off.
Yeah. Because Savelli saw you paying. He happened to run into you in front of your house up on the mountain, and he happened to see you paying the delivery guy with cash. And he's like, "Aren't we supposed to be just using card for everything because cash is bad or whatever?" Mm-hmm. And you're just like, "Yeah, I just have stacks of money. All my money is like in my house right now, and I just have to get rid of it." But it did make me laugh a little bit thinking about all the hysterical conversations we were having.
Well, and I had this money for over 2.5 months, so the money's perfectly sanitized and clean.
For the record.
Sorry, Max, so what were you saying about your COVID test?
So basically, there is a testing center not far from you, Dave Andrew Chuck Arena, Shane, which is just like probably a 4-minute drive from your place. And basically, you drive right into the arena, like where the Zamboni would like enter and dump the ice outside the parking lot. And you just do a loop, like it's a drive-through. You roll down your window on the left side. They take your health card information and ask you a couple questions. Then you just stay in your car. You go around to the loop and to the other side, and you basically roll your windows down. A nurse comes by with like basically a swab, a Q-tip looking thing, puts it up your nose for 3 seconds, and you're done. And that's that. But here's the thing. I am a wimp, and everybody who's telling me about this COVID test is like, they go, oh, it touches your brain. Oh, it's the worst. Oh my God. It's, they swipe it up there for 10 seconds. Oh, and I was like, that description enough is good enough to not do it for me. Like, I'm just not going to bother. But then I was thinking, maybe I should just do it. And I just want to tell for anybody who's curious about getting it, it's really not that bad. Like, I am a wimp. It's literally 3 seconds. What I did though was I was in the car, I closed my eyes and I put a podcast on while they're doing the thing. So I didn't have to like live with the visual trauma of seeing them like stick it up my nose. So if I can give you one piece of advice, just close your eyes and it'll be done in a second.
So it didn't hurt at all?
I mean, it's probably the equivalent of like just a little bit of water up your nose or something like that. Yeah.
Do you acknowledge the person doing the test at all, or?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? Cool. Okay, and then when I see,
did you tip?
Yeah. I mean, it will fit. 20% on $99.99. So $20.
Did you have to make an appointment, or did you just able to drive up?
I was supposed to make it. Well, on the website, it's a no appointment needed. I get there, and they said, oh, you're supposed to actually do an appointment for this site, but because nobody's here, come on in. Doesn't matter. And then I was in and out probably in like 9 minutes.
Crazy.
Oh my God. I've heard that the lines are crazy.
I think they were, and then maybe there still are some long lines, but overall, easy peasy.
But wait, there's still Mikey directed a big shoot during this time period that I'd like to hear about.
that did happen. We were at Bell Media. Everything like most of the working world has been shut down for months and months, and people didn't know who was going to be sort of the first person to go back and shoot something. Like almost all of our shows on CTV are remote right now, so we didn't know when there was going to be like a commercial shoot. And one came up for Shane and I's department. Our creative director Randall like wrote a spot. It got approved, and we were tapped to direct it. He asked both Shane and I, but Shane has a baby like imminent. You could have a baby.
Oh, next
any
Sunday
day now,
the baby's coming. Yeah,
which is so exciting. Which is so
Damn.
exciting. And then so he bowed out, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, I'll sort of be the canary in the coal mine. I'll be the first one back. There's all these protocols that like the Commercial Commission of Canada has like put out. So like we read all of those safety protocols, we followed all of them, but it was bizarre to be directing a commercial on set during COVID, just like it was like a stripped down crew. We had to cast our director of photography in one of the spots because we would have had too many people on set if we added the extra actor. So it was either like I'm playing this role or you're playing this role to Hattie, our DOP. And him and his crew made this thing look amazing. It was like a superhero spot. But anyway, it was weird to be on set. The mask never came off. It was bizarre to wear a mask for like more than 8 hours straight. Like it was such a weird experience where the back of your ears like start to hurt. So you really are like, man, like frontline workers are just these nurses who are putting in these 12-hour days who never take their masks off. It's maybe to eat.
Yeah, Lauren, 12 hours. Every time I pick her up, she's had it on the whole time. It's
it
crazy.
is wild, but
does your face get itchy and whatnot?
Yeah, it's like you kind of like you get hot under there. I would say after lunch, you are now living with your own breath, which is like not the most pleasant experience where you're just like, oh my God, I'm like, how am I going to do this?
Do you eat with the mask on?
No, so basically we all had like spots, like our own areas on set where you would go to, and that was kind of like your area, and there's tons of hand sanitizer and all that. So you would take the mask off for lunchtime, and then the mask would go back on, and then you'd go and interact with the crew and all that. And everyone on set had masks except for the actors.
Do you sit by yourself like far away during lunch period?
Yeah, I had like a director's hub, but I would like go out and talk with Hattie when we had to like set up camera and do different shots and stuff. I was out there plotting those shots with our director of photography, Hattie. And then sometimes with the actors, if I needed to sort of show them what they were going to do physically, like with their positioning with their body, I would go out and I would be 6 feet away and I would sort of explain the direction like physically, and then they would sort of emulate me and then they would do it. But I was calling action from like a different space, like in its own sort of like hub, like a director's hub.
Was there any advantage to doing the shoot like that? Like any tips like that you gleaned from directing in that weird way?
It was interesting. What was interesting is it's like our creative director and his boss, who normally maybe would come and be on set to sort of like they drop in for a couple hours, whatever. Everybody, like we basically had a remote setup where everybody could pipe in and watch like all of the takes. It was good because in some ways it's like they're there. So if there's anything they're seeing that isn't working for them, they can tell me directly. You know what I mean? But then also it's like they're kind of there, so you might end up having to do extra takes or something because people have different opinions and all that sort of the too many cooks. But again, as you know, Shane, we're pretty lucky where our bosses tend to be like, once you guys are doing it, we trust you guys. So yeah, it was cool to get out and actually do a spot. And then I was editing it all. So I had an editing setup here at my dining room table. Normally we go back to work into our editing system, but it was so weird. And I basically had to abandon my family for 5 days to basically just get this job done. Danica was just on full.
Well, it turned out so crazy amazing. I couldn't believe it. It actually made me nervous to direct a shoot. Because following something like that under these times is so have you guys seen it?
I haven't. I saw some of the sneak peek stuff, but I actually
it's crazy good. Are you allowed to release that to the public?
I don't think so. It's like a business to business spot, like Bell Media for other agencies.
But you can't say sneak peek online, Mike, and then not reveal the full thing.
Well, here's the thing. I wanted to show some of it because it does look awesome and I'm pretty proud of it. But I knew I couldn't put the whole spot up on my Instagram.
Okay.
So the sneak peek was just kind of a thing where I'm like, some people get to see it and then they'll forget about it. But then I did end up getting a bunch of messages where they're like, where can I see this, bro? And I'm like, fuck. But I'm happy with how it turned out. It felt good for Shane and I, sort of it proved that you can do it. It proved that a shoot can be done.
It's a huge
that
win
can
for
be
a department.
saved. Yeah, so that's what I'd sort of been up to in this space and time, but it was really fun and cool to do something creative because we've all been I know Max, you've been doing, the music class and other sort of Arkel's stuff that is a creative outlet. Eric, like you said, you're back to work. Shane, you got Family Tree, but for me to actually do what our job is, and be creative again. At first I was kind of oh man, I'm going to go to a set and this is kind of weird and all this stuff. But then once I started doing it, you settle in and you're like, fuck, this feels awesome to actually be making something again and doing interesting sort of work. So it was awesome. But I had to take this whole week off of work and just take care of the kid because I owed Danica big time, where I'm like, just let me get through this. I need to concentrate on this nonstop. And then I will take over the baby for the whole next week. So that's where I'm at.
Nice.
Okay, guys, before we go, weigh in. How are we doing? Because how's everybody doing with their weight loss?
Oh.
I thought you just meant being under quarantine for 87 days or whatever. I'm doing not the best, but I'm not doing the worst. I'm still 19 pounds less than I was in January.
Impressive.
Damn.
Impressive.
So for me, that's good. How about you, Mikey?
I like I said, I'd lost over 10 pounds at one point, maybe that 12-pound range, but I would say it wasn't due to discipline and more due to anxiety and crushing fear of the future and a pandemic. But I'm still down, which is good for me. I'm fitting into the t-shirts, but I would say that as I've started to feel more comfortable, and I'll drink a little more beer, eat a little more pizza,
comfort food. Yeah.
The comfort food has re-entered my orbit and my diet. So I probably, I haven't given back all my winnings, but probably about halfway there. if this is a casino, the casino of weight.
Yeah, I think I'm about, I think I'm down 6 or 7 pounds. And I don't feel too, I haven't really felt like my lifestyle's that different, but it's really, I think, just comes down to any social thing we do. There's a chance there's 2 beers there, 2 beers there, 2 beers there. Or let's get a slice of pizza. Just those little things do really add up. So yeah, no, I think I'm down to down 6 or 7 pounds.
Give me a hard number, Max.
I'm 174. I weighed myself 174 this morning.
Wow.
But you say my scale is bullshit anyway. So
yeah, so it's really 180, but still good.
Erica, what are you at? How you doing?
How much you weigh? We can't ask that.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I gained that 10 pounds pretty quick into quarantine. Still chilling with it, I think. But I feel good. I feel healthy. It's fine. I'm not stressed
Erica,
about it.
you have such just a stoned glaze.
Are you
about
on weed gummies?
You became Matthew
what are you
McConaughey over
doing?
these last 3 weeks. All right.
No, I wish I was on weed gummies. No, I'm just chilling.
You said that the best.